On September 27, 1994, nearly 1,000 passengers boarded what had been promised as the safest ship in the Baltic, modern and unsinkable, a symbol of hope for a new Europe. By dawn, it would vanish beneath the waves in one of history's deadliest maritime disasters. I ask, what series of overlooked risks and design flaws turned routine trust into catastrophe on the very ship designed never to sink? In the years after the Iron Curtain fell, I watched the Baltic Sea become a highway of new possibilities. Ferries like MS Estonia offered more than travel. They promised connection, progress, and a taste of Western freedom for people on both sides of the water. I trace its history. It was built in 1980 at Meyer Werft in West Germany. The ship began life as Viking Sally, changing hands and names. She was purchased by Estlin in 1993. With a fresh coat of paint and a new name, Estonia was marketed as the pride of a young nation. Brochures described her as modern and luxurious, with safety features that reassured even the most cautious traveler. Advertisements spoke of comfort, reliability, and a future where borders faded into memory. On the route from Tallinn to Stockholm, Estonia carried a mix of families, business travelers, students, and returning expatriates. The passenger list on September 27, 1994 reflected the optimism of the era. Estonians eager for opportunity, Swedes visiting friends or conducting trade, and tourists drawn by the promise of a vibrant, open Baltic. Tickets were affordable and sold through travel agencies and ferry terminals, bustling with new energy. For many, boarding Estonia meant stepping into a world that felt safer, more connected, and full of hope. That night, as darkness settled over the harbor, almost 1,000 people put their trust in a vessel that seemed to embody the spirit of the times, modern, secure, and built for a future that felt within reach. At 19:15, I watched Estonia ease away from the quay in Tallinn, her engines humming steadily as the city lights faded behind. The crew moved through familiar routines, checking manifest lists, securing the last vehicles on the car deck, and logging each lashing in the cargo records. Trucks and cars, some heavy with freight, were locked in place with thick steel chains, their positions noted for balance. The slight starboard tilt was entered into the log, a minor correction, not uncommon on a busy sailing night. On the bridge, the watch changed as scheduled. Officers reviewed the weather forecast, gale force winds gusting between 24 and 28 meters per second, nothing outside the usual for this time of year. The Baltic in autumn was known for its rough moods. The captain and officers, experienced in these waters, kept the ship on a steady westerly course at 14 knots, trusting both the vessel and their procedures. Below decks, passengers finished dinners, browsed the duty-free shops, or retreated to their cabins. The corridors were quiet, lined with closed doors and the soft hum of ventilation. Some passengers lingered in lounges, reading or sharing drinks, while others prepared for sleep, their bags stowed and alarms set for an early arrival in Stockholm. I moved through those spaces later, aware of how ordinary they felt that night, how ordinary everything seemed. The car deck, now locked and silent, held its cargo beneath layers of steel and concrete. Crew members completed final rounds, double-checking latches and logbooks before climbing the stairs to their own quarters. Above, the bridge kept its vigil, eyes on the radar and horizon, as Estonia pressed into the night, every system appearing in order. I have focused on the heart of Estonia's promise, the BO, where a massive steel visor weighed nearly 55 tons. This visor swung upward on hydraulic hinges to reveal the car deck, letting trucks and cars roll on and off in port. When closed, it was supposed to seal the bow against the sea, held in place by 2 side locks and a central locking pin, all backed by powerful hydraulic systems. Ship drawings from the original Meyer-Werft build show how these locking devices were sized to withstand the force of opening and closing in calm harbors, not the relentless battering of open water. Classification approval at the time treated the visor as an operational convenience, not as a primary safety barrier. The design calculations focused on static pressures and the mechanical effort of moving the visor rather than the repeated shock loads from heavy seas at 14 or 15 knots. The assumption was simple. The ball would rarely, if ever, face the full force of green water at speed. But in the Baltic autumn, waves could reach 4 or 5 meters, and the bow visor's attachments were never truly engineered for that kind of punishment. Beneath the steel plating, the visor's hinges and lugs formed the critical chain that kept the sea out. Any weakness here, whether from under-dimensioned components, fatigue, or missed inspections, could have consequences far beyond routine maintenance. The inner ramp behind the visor, designed mainly as a loading door, was not built to hold back the ocean if the visor failed. Shipyard records and later investigations revealed that the boundary between safety and disaster depended on a handful of bolts, welds, and pins, parts approved for harbor loads yet sent out night after night into the unpredictable Baltic. As Estonia pressed westward, the true limits of her bow's strength had yet to be tested. Shortly after 1 o'clock in the morning, I heard a deep metallic bang from the bow. Passengers in forward cabins jolted awake. Some later described a shock that seemed to ripple through the steel. Over the next few minutes, the noises grew louder and more frequent, a sequence of heavy impacts, grinding and scraping, as if metal was being torn apart. On the bridge, I listened as officers debated the source, unsure whether cargo had shifted or whether something more serious was happening at the bow. In reality, I later learned the visor locking system was failing under repeated assault from 4 to 5 meter waves. Years of metal fatigue and earlier repairs had left the lugs and hinges vulnerable. The first bang signaled the fracture of the central locking pin called the Atlantic lock. With the main restraint gone, the visor began to work loose, slamming against the hull with each new wave. Side locks and hinge welds, already weakened by years of stress, started to deform and crack. Each new shock sent vibrations through the ship's structure, a warning that the boundary between the sea and the car deck was unraveling. Around 1:15 in the morning, the visor finally tore away. It swung forward, ripping free from the bow and vanishing into the darkness. The visor, weighing over 50 tons, would later be found on the seabed more than 1 kilometer from the wreck. Its departure left the inner bow ramp exposed to the open sea. The ramp had never been meant to withstand direct wave impact, and it began to bend and fail. With each passing second, the ship's defenses weakened, setting the stage for catastrophic flooding. At 1:22 in the morning, I heard the bridge radio a distress call. The message, sent first to Silja Europa, described a heavy list but did not use the standard Mayday format. Only after a brief exchange did the word Mayday reach the airwaves, and that delay slowed the response from rescue centers ashore. On the bridge, the captain ordered counter-flooding, directing ballast tanks on the port side to fill in hopes of reducing the starboard heel. The crew also tried to steer the ship to lessen the force of the incoming waves. These actions were immediate, but they made little difference. Water flooding the car deck far outpaced any correction the ballast could provide. Within minutes, the list increased to over 20 degrees, and movement inside the ship grew difficult. The bridge's efforts could not reverse the loss of stability now underway. Inside the hull, I watched the angle of the floors grow steeper with every minute, doors jammed shut, trapping people in cabins as the ship rolled. Corridors turned into steep chutes, and stairwells became nearly impossible to climb. Some passengers managed to break out, crawling and pulling themselves toward higher decks. Fewer than 140 reached the open deck, where darkness, wind, and freezing spray waited. On the starboard side, lifeboats were already underwater. On the port side, they hung far above the sea, out of reach. Most life rafts either failed to launch or blew away in the gale. As the list passed 45 degrees, movement inside the ship stopped. At 1:50 in the morning, Estonia capsized. Only 137 people survived the night. For the rest, escape routes had vanished in the tilt and the cold. Today, roll-on, roll-off ferries still cross the Baltic daily, redesigned but never risk-free. As shipping grows faster and larger, safety depends on constant vigilance, not assumptions of invincibility. In every crossing, the lesson endures. No vessel is truly unsinkable. Let me know your thoughts below.